Okay, so let's go ahead and continue with our wood grains. We are getting pretty close. Although over here, those overlays that we did is maybe a bit too strong. So you can always just tone down the opacity a little bit if needed. So now that we have this stuff, I just want to make the wood grains feel a little bit more grainy, I guess. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a slope blur grayscale after this. And for this one, I want to get like a sort of like a combo. So let's grab a moisture noise with like quite a low scale this time, because these are very small grains. And because I'm going to not so much create like these little, what do you call them? Chips or whatever they are called. And the reason that I'm not doing that is because we just don't have the resolution for it. But I am going to kind of like fake the unevenness that we get from these. Here you can see like we just wouldn't have the resolution to do something like this when we are looking at like multiple different planks. So the way that I have that in mind is I grab a moisture noise. I then go to patterns and I grab like a tile generator. And I want this tile generator to be a gradient. Where are you? Gradation. Oh yeah, gradation. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set my rotation random up so that we have like a bunch of different rotations. And let's also throw in like the symmetry random. Let's set our mounts way up. So now we have all of these like little squares over here. Now if we go ahead and, I don't know, for my scale, let's set our scale maybe up. But then if we scroll all the way down, set our blending mode to max. Scroll all the way up again. You know what? No, maybe it's not nice to have the scaling up. Let's see. I kind of like want to have them not square, so I don't know which one I need to move for that. It doesn't actually matter which one I need to move because we have all of these random rotations. There we go. So now it's not as square. Let's tone down our scale random so that we do keep these quite close together. Position random. Yeah, you know what? This might actually work. If we do position random and then boost up our scaling quite a bit. And then set the mode. So what else do we have? We have max, art. Yeah, okay, so we will need to go for like max. So we just get like this mess basically. But that's fine if that's kind of like what I'm going for. Maybe set the interstance scale and the random and everything up. So that we basically just get like a bunch of different variation in here. And it's just that we get something like this. It doesn't really need to be precise. It's just to get like some kind of like squariness in our noise. Because then if we blend our moisture noise using this tile generation and do like a multiply, tone this down a little bit like this, and throw this into our noise. This might actually be, I might actually need to do like a safe transform. Let's add a safe transform grayscale. It's very similar to the normal transform, only this time for tiling we have a simple slider. So I'm going to make this a lot smaller, like that. There we go. And now we get like these really squariness pieces. And then in your slope blur grayscale, you want to set the samples up, mode to minimum, and just tone this down. And now if we go ahead and very carefully move our intensity to like 0.01. Here, see, you can now see that we get like these squariness looking shapes. One thing that I want to make sure is if I go to my safe transform and set my rotation to 90 degrees to see if that works better or not. Yeah, I do feel like that works a tiny bit better just because they now go like with the grain. And as you can see, that instantly just makes all of our wood and everything feel a lot less perfect and more organic. Let's do 0.003 probably. And just like that, we now have like some nice uneven wood going on over here. I would say that at this point, I'm quite happy with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually throw this into... Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw this into like a normal map and then go into Master Toolbag. So for the normal map, we want to go ahead and add a normal node over here. And this normal node will just convert your height map, which is our grayscale, to a normal map. We are working in OpenGL, even though Unreal Engine is DirectX. I feel like reading normal maps in OpenGL is much easier. Because, for example, if we now tone down the intensity, yeah, you can see that now it does feel a little bit more like wood grains. So that is pretty good. So we got this stuff over here. The only thing that I'm not sure about is that sometimes our really thick lines are running through our knots. But that's something that we can kind of like just see. So what I'm going to do is let's tone this down because we want to have this very soft. 0.1 is probably still too much, but let's just try it out. Let's go ahead and set these thicker line or these stronger lines down a little bit more to make them a bit more intense. So now we have like these cutting lines sitting through here, which can sometimes be quite nice. And we can just throw this into our ambient occlusion. Now, as for our height, we technically don't really have a height. For now, I will just input this height that we have over here, but we won't be using it. So for this wood, the height will only come when we do our actual planks and everything. Ambient occlusion. There are two types of ambient occlusion. We have, here, if we type it in, we have HBAO and RTAO. I forgot what HB stands for. Horizon-based ambient occlusion, and the other one stands for ray trace ambient occlusion. I quite am in love with the ray trace ambient occlusion. It is more expensive, but it does give us like a better effect. Just plug this in here. We probably won't be using a lot of it, but with this one you can just set like your height scale down to 0.001, for example, or 0.2. And just give it like a little bit of like that occlusion. And we can actually control the intensity of this inside of Marmoset. But as you can see, it is quite expensive. The other one, the HBAO, if we do that one, you can see that that one, if we turn on GPU optimization, it is a little bit cheaper, but it does also look different, as you can see. 0.002, for example. Here, see, you can see that it is not as good in capturing those really, really small details. But I want to capture those small details because it is wood. And I need to have every inch of resolution I can get when it comes to thin grains. So we got these pieces over here. That's looking pretty good. Let's save our scene and let's actually preview this inside of Marmoset. Let's go to our textures, plain wood, and create a folder called Final. This will be the folder in which we will be exporting our textures. The way that you can export inside of Substance Designer is you can go to your plain wood, right click, export outputs as bitmap, and then in here, you just want to navigate to your final folder, select it. I always export as a TGA. One thing to keep in mind is that TGA is great, although sometimes if you have very, very strong height maps that you need to have displacement on, you might want to export as PNG. PNG will be much slower, but it does give you a better result because of the bitmap rate, or the bitmap depth, I should say, within PNGs. Now next to this, we turn on automatic exports when outputs change. This is very important. This is because we want to preview our material inside of Marmoset. Setting this setting will basically mean that whenever we make a change, it will automatically export so that we can just switch to Marmoset and we can see our changes. So at this point, we can go ahead and we can now go into Marmoset, create a new material by pressing the little plus sign, and call this wood_plane. Now in here, we now have our maps exported, so we are just going to drag in our normal map over here. Here we go. And then what we also want to do is we want to go down here to our ambient occlusion and tick occlusion. And just port in our occlusion map. Now when we throw this on here, you can see that now we get our grains. Let's set the ambient occlusion quite a bit lower. And there's two things I want to do. First of all, I want to go to my texture and set my tiling up here to 2. I always tend to do that, so we can see like the grains a little bit more intense. The next thing is I'm going to set my roughness a little bit down, so that it is not as strong. Okay, so this is what we got right now. Now, I'm not really happy about it just yet. There's a few things that I do need to work on. Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, there's a few things I need to work on. So now it's time for like some balancing. So if we have this stuff, what do I see here? These strong cuts, I want to warp them a little bit stronger. Some of these warps feel a little bit too even, so I want to randomize that. And I want to make these warps over here a little bit less strong. And yeah, I think that's like a good start. So we're gonna get started by going in here. And where we are warping these strong cuts, maybe we need to use a warp anyway. The reason why I say that is because the warp does technically warp in all directions, which in this case might... Oh, sorry, we need to do that all the way over here, actually. I believe. No? When I'm... Oh, wait, I'm warping it not with the correct noise, that's why. So let's hold Control and just plug this in here. There we go. So... I don't know. It does not give as nice of an effect. What if we set our directions to 2? No, 2 just also breaks it. That's a tricky one. In that case, I'm going to use my warp. I'm just using this one, but I need to be a bit careful about it. So let's delete our multi-directional and use this warp, and we'll see how it goes. So here it does start to warp a little bit better around things, as you can see. So hopefully that will work a bit better. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I was actually first of all going to my slope blur, making this a bit stronger to like 0.005. And I was going to make over here these bumps that we have. I was going to make them a little bit more uneven. A few ways that we can do that is we can go into a tile generator, set our scaling up, and then set like a scale random up so that we have like these larger areas over here. The second one is to go into our directional warp and just not make them as intense. Something like this. Here, see, so now we got like these different types of scaling. That should be fine. Over here, so we got this one that I'm adding on top of this. And that is giving me quite strong warping. So the warping is great over here. I just I really don't like it in here. I'm just going to temporarily turn it off just to see if it makes a big difference. So if you now switch back to Momset, it should have auto-loaded. And you can see that it has now auto-loaded. So that does make actually a big difference if we just have those knobs not as intense in some of those areas. Let's see, one way that we could maybe do that is... okay, so we have like the warping over here. So I'm using this one for that. What if I duplicate this blend and I'm just making this... Yeah, it's also like duplicate this blur high quality grayscale. What if I just make this like a lot less? It probably won't give me like a very nice look, but maybe it will be better than what we have right now. No, that will not be better. What if I make it way more? Like that, so that it just like adds some type of warping in there. That might actually work a bit better, yes. Yeah, I think that works a little bit better. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think that works. Especially once we have like our actual, how you say it? Our actual base color on it. Our base color will kind of like hide some of these pieces. Okay, so that's already looking like a little bit better. So we got like this wood grain going on over here. So that's pretty good. If I have a quick look at some of my reference. Yeah, so like we got this wood grain. I am still missing like some of these pieces over here where it's kind of like warping together and like pinching, like you can see over here. Oh no, wait, yeah, I sort of got those, just not as many of them. I wonder if we now, let's say, mess around over here. So what if I scale this up so that we have like a few more of those pieces? That should kind of like layer those in, and maybe we need to set our gradient linear tiling to like 350 or something like that to make it a little bit smaller. I think that might work in our favor. Yeah, here, so that does look a little bit more interesting. So we already start to get like quite a nice looking grain. I think at this point, so we will need to do a little bit more balancing. But I think at this point, what would be nice if we just start with working on our base colors. Especially like if we set the tiling back to 1, you can see that the grain does actually have a lot of fidelity sitting in here. We just kind of like need to balance out the tiling on how big or small we are going to make everything. And based upon that, we kind of like know what we want to do. That's the thing with this type of grain. You cannot really that easily control the scale. I would say the easiest way for us to control the scale would be if we would go in here. We would like add a transform 2D. And then we can like set the scaling once up over here. But that might be too much. So you can hold Ctrl Shift and you can like move this down. And you can set the scaling like that. But then the problem is that if you press space, you can see that it is no longer tileable, as you can see over here. And a way to fix that would be to maybe add a node that is called Make It Tile Photo Grayscale. And this node will make a tile. Sometimes, in this case it does a really good job. Doesn't always. So you can see like a very soft line that you can see it over here. You can play around with your mask precision on, let's say, on the V-axis. Here, see, and then you can like... let's see. Yeah, you can just mess around with your mask precision to get sort of... Yeah, let's not set the mask size too high. To kind of like get like some more variation in here. It's a little bit tricky to see. But if it's tricky to see, that means that it will hopefully also just work fine in here. Here, see in our norm map, now this is working a little bit better. The cool thing about this is basically that it will give us, here, see, some control. So if I now set this to 2, you can see that now even on a tiling of 2, our grains are a little bit bigger. And that is quite nice. The only problem with doing it this way is that whenever we add our knobs or knots or anything, then it will not look as good. I guess what we can try to do for that, because I need to like use the mask of my knots. So over here, oh no, you see, because I'm already adding this all the way back here, so it doesn't matter. So then it just means that we would also need to use this technique later on for whenever we do like something in our base colors. So just keep that in mind. For now, let's go ahead and go in here. Add a frame. Call this damage add-on. And add a frame over here. Call this one scale correct. And then add one more frame over here. And call this one outputs. There we go. Let's save our scene. In the next chapter we will move on to our base color and we will move on to our roughness. And once those things are done, then we already have like a pretty solid base with and we can just continue on from there.